My body just wants to walk, man. It just doesn't like this whole sitting thing.
The consequences can be, well, fatal, so...
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't really want that.
So the first aid team are entering the community, and they're looking for victims injured by debris falling from the earthquake.
Despite developments in medicine and technology, the only mobility option available for the millions of people with some form of paralysis remains as it did centuries ago, a wheelchair. And the limitations of wheelchairs are not just with regards to mobility. There are numerous medical and psychological issues associated with them. I'm Dr. Geoff Lacey, and I'm here in San Francisco, America, to find out about an exciting new development for people with paralysis. I'm just about to meet Arash, who's a young gentleman who had a spinal cord injury quite recently and has been wheelchair-bound ever since. Thanks for letting me come to your house. Wow, that is some view. We've got the whole bay.
Yeah, right underneath.
So, Arash, do you mind if I start by asking you about your accident?
Yeah, it was, you know, I was hanging out at a friend's house, and we were locked out of his apartment. He lived on the 3rd floor, and I figured I'd climb up to his balcony and get in and save the day. As I was getting up, I fell, so I fell from about 10 meters, landed on my neck. As I kind of came to in the hospital, I noticed as I was lying there that I couldn't move my legs, that something was pretty seriously wrong. I broke my C5 and C6 vertebrae.
How do you cope with such a dramatic impact on your life?
I just don't see any other option but to cope. I don't want to say embrace what happened, but really accept what happened and kind of move forward. A spinal cord injury is an incredibly devastating injury. It affects everything from physical strength and everything to when you need to go use the restroom and not being able to look at people at eye level, constantly having to look up. There's so many benefits to being able to stand up and walk, aside from just the mobility aspect of it. So to be able to potentially experience that and feel those benefits, I think is just incredibly exciting.
Exobionics is an organisation that is at the forefront of technological advancements, which are allowing people like Arash the opportunity to walk again. It's a very impressive office you have here.
Thank you. We're really lucky to have it. It's a very cool old Ford factory.
Really?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So this is the exosuit?
Yes. It's basically a wearable robot. It takes a person and it can provide torque to their joints where they maybe can't. So when I stand, I provide torque in my knees so I don't go like this.
Yeah.
But then the suit provides that, and you provide everything else. So your weight doesn't actually go through the suit. Your weight goes through you naturally.
So there's the obvious benefit of allowing that person to be able to stand up and walk, but are there other clinical benefits that we're aware of for the suit?
Things like urinary tract infection, bowel movement complications, and then things like pressure sores.
Right.
All of those, we think we can substantiate that walking, getting up and walking is going to help. So this one here is fresh off our assembly line.
How's it controlled?
It looks at various sensors all around the suit. And when you position yourself correctly with your shoulders basically centered over your lead foot, it knows you want to take another step, right? Because it looks kind of unnatural. I suddenly start standing like this.
Yeah.
Turns out people only really do that when they're going to take another step. So then it takes another step.
So how is it used in clinical practice at the moment?
So right now it's designed for use in a rehab center with a physical therapist. The dream, of course, is that eventually you get those home units into homes and you replace more and more of the wheelchair time during their day.
Arash arrives with his parents to use the exosuit and to walk for the first time since his accident.
How's it going?
How you doing? Ready for it?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Absolutely. Let's do this. This is fun. Cool. You need it. Oh, so I'm attached to this thing too, huh?
So yeah, that's one other safety precaution. You know, so.
I feel like RoboCop.
It's a good look though. It's cool.
Okay, we're gonna set you up now. Ready?
All right.
1, 2, 3, and push straight down. Come forward.
All right.
How does that feel?
Interesting. Very interesting.
All right, so the first step is always with the right step.
I can get used to this thing. My body just wants to walk, man. Just doesn't like this whole sitting thing.
All right, buddy, I'm gonna start calling steps. So stepping up. Shift over. Step.
So what do you think?
I am really excited to see him in this position because Arash used to be very athletic, running, biking, motorcycling, everything. I think given that we're all cyborgs, we're all partially defined by technology and partially who we are, I think any help that comes from technology would be really good.
After half an hour, Arash gets to control the exosuit himself.
So there's 4 different buttons that will trigger the first step. Okay, any one of the buttons will do the same thing.
Later on, we can turn this around.
This is easier.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, because you're more in control.
Yeah, it's kind of like I just have to figure out where to go.
Walk right, left.
Already, the psychological benefits are clear for Arash.
It's not normal to be just craning your head up all the time. But it feels like you're part of society, part of your communication and conversations again.
You know, the future is going to get really exciting just in the bionic space in general. And I think you're going to be able to see someone come into an airplane in an exoskeleton and sit down in an economy seat. And you're going to see grandma at the mall, and she's going to show off her hip new exo pants. And, you know, she's going to be able to take a walk with her grandkids that she couldn't take. It's not far. That's what's really exciting, is it's really not science fiction anymore.
I would like to see this technology go to a point where it replaces a wheelchair. If not all the time, then much of the time.
Dr. Louise Pierce risked her life to test a new drug she believed would cure African sleeping sickness. Human African trypanosomiasis is transmitted to humans by tsetse fly bites. Parasites multiply in the tissue, blood and lymph nodes. In one form, after months or years, the disease attacks the central nervous system and victims fall into a coma and die. In a second, less common form, the disease can fatally attack the heart within weeks. In 1919, Dr. Pierce and pathologist Dr. Wade Hampton Brown announced they had discovered the arsenic-based drug trypanosamide could be highly effective in curing the disease in animals. A year later, in 1920, a sleeping sickness epidemic broke out across some African countries, with the Congo, at that time a Belgian colony, one of the worst hit. Pierce, then aged 35, volunteered to travel alone to the colony. Travel in the Congo is still dangerous, but in those days this was an arduous and life-threatening undertaking. She administered trypanosamide to 70 patients and tested the effect of different doses. The new treatment cured about 80% of patients, although high doses given for severe cases led to partial or complete loss of vision. For decades, trypanosamide remained the standard treatment for sleeping sickness until other drugs were developed and screening programs introduced, which allowed for treatment at earlier stages of the disease. By the mid-1960s, the disease had almost disappeared and surveillance was relaxed. The disease has recently reappeared in several countries, including today's Democratic Republic of Congo, where 70% of the 500 new cases a year occur. Louise Pierce retired in 1951 and died 8 years later, following a short illness.
Type 1 diabetes is a life-threatening condition caused when the pancreas does not produce insulin, a hormone which helps the body absorb glucose needed to fuel our muscles. Sufferers have to monitor blood sugar levels and give themselves synthetic insulin, using either injections or a pump.
Currently, type 1 diabetes sufferers have to repeatedly check their blood sugar levels throughout the day. But at night, as people sleep, levels can go unmonitored and may fluctuate dangerously. Now, a new device is being trialed that automatically measures the sufferer's blood sugar levels and supplies insulin as they sleep. Kyle Farhadian is one of around 30 million people worldwide who suffer from type 1 diabetes. Kyle must be careful every time he eats, even a small snack.
When you have diabetes for as long as I have, and you eat the same foods over and over again, you sort of remember what foods have what amount of carbohydrate. So I know that a slice of bread has 20 grams.
20 grams?
Yeah.
How does that affect you, and what do you need to think about?
For every 5 grams of carbohydrate, it's 1 unit of insulin.
1 unit of insulin.
Yeah.
Throughout the day, Kyle must monitor his blood sugar levels, which should remain between 4 and 8 units.
Touch it to the side like that, and in a few seconds we'll get a reading. Well, right now, if we have a look, it says I'm 8.9, which is it's a little bit high.
An implant under Kyle's skin is attached to an insulin pump, and during the day, he manually tells the pump how much insulin he needs. So why is it so important, both in the short term and the long term, to manage your blood glucose levels?
The internal chemistry of your body is like out of check, and that takes an effect on basically your whole body, all your organs and everything, and over time that can be detrimental to many parts of your body. So for instance, you can become blind, kidney failure. The consequences can be, well, fatal. So
yeah,
obviously I don't really want that.
It's a busy life, isn't it? Lots to remember.
It is extremely busy. You can't just have a day that you don't think about it or you don't take insulin. The first time he took his injection, I cried. Oh. It's your child. You know, injecting himself isn't nice.
It's not easy to see.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
It was very hard. You know, it's a silent killer, sort of. It's something that could be happening that you don't know about. So we really need to be extremely on top of it all the time.
But Kyle is part of a trial to test a device which could revolutionize diabetes care. A team of researchers from Cambridge University are here to show him the prototype of the artificial pancreas. 3 weeks earlier, Kyle had a wireless blood sugar sensor installed. Today, he'll finally get to hook up to the rest of the artificial pancreas.
Kyle is wearing a sensor in his arm. This is taking glucose from the fluid around the cell, the interstitial fluid, and measuring it. It's being sent via this transmitter to the continuous glucose monitor screen. The continuous glucose monitor is attached via the USB cable to the computer. The algorithm inside the computer is working out how much insulin Kyle will need. And the insulin is going just under the skin.
Until now, Kyle's pump supplied a preset amount of insulin to him at night. But for the next 3 weeks, the artificial pancreas, or closed-loop system, will automatically deliver insulin at night. Nighttime is one of the most dangerous times for a diabetic, as blood sugar levels go unmonitored during sleep. Dr. Roman Hovorka heads the team which developed the artificial pancreas.
If the body is controlling the glucose, on one night it will need more insulin, on another night it will need less insulin.
So how do parents cope with the evening, especially with the very young children?
Most of them would wake up once or twice a night, every day of the year. So this shows data from our early subjects. We would like glucose, which is these red dots, to be here. this is where we would like it to be. Above that it's high, below that it's too low. So you can see this is the evening meal.
So this is relatively high, isn't it? You'd like to lower it.
This is high. This is not good. And this is where we studied the subject, the same subject. This is the period, overnight period, when the closed loop was on. So you can see the insulin delivery through the closed loop.
Managed to bring the levels down.
And maintaining it. But for the time being, this technology is possibly the only tangible solutions, especially for the younger ones, to help them to live better lives.
3 weeks later, we return to see how Kyle is getting on.
Hi.
How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. That's basically showing that my blood sugar is 7.9, which is pretty much normal, and the arrow shows that it's stable, which means it's not going high or low. But this is obviously a lot easier, and I'd have to do less thinking with this as well. So it's almost like my pancreas is working.
Yeah. You do seem like you have a lot more energy, I gotta say.
I'm waking up with normal blood sugars when I'm on this closed loop, and I find that I have a lot more energy in school.
How do you feel about giving it back at the end of your trial?
Well, obviously I'd like to keep it because, you know, of the benefits. The only advance from that would be a cure.
Yeah.
For me, I want this to be made mainstream so I can use it, and then obviously for all the other diabetics, we'll have less deaths from diabetes. Obviously more people are going to get diagnosed. They can be put straight onto this and find that they can control it easily from the start.
Yeah. Radiation leaked after Japan's Fukushima nuclear disaster in 2011 is unlikely to make people sick, according to a United Nations draft report. The report states that the mass evacuation shortly after nuclear reactors failed following an earthquake and tsunami significantly reduced radiation exposure.
A recent United Nations report on natural disasters ranked El Salvador as the most vulnerable country in the world. Here, 95% of the population are at risk from natural disasters, such as hurricanes, flooding and earthquakes. I'm Dr. Louise Peeling, and I'm here to witness how evacuation drills run by El Salvador's young people are preparing their communities for the worst. El Salvador sits above 3 large tectonic plates, and as a result, earthquakes are a regular and sometimes devastating occurrence. During the rainy season, flooding and mudslides can destroy entire communities. Hurricanes also pose a serious risk. El Salvador is the most densely populated country in Central America, which means that homes are often built wherever land is available, increasing the impact of these natural disasters. In 2008, heavy rain caused huge flooding, which devastated many communities, including Malara. Could you describe a little bit about what happened to your community?
Cuando creció el agua, que el caudal del río levantó, yo vivía allá por donde están aquellas rocas en el medio río. Ahí tenía mi casa y se la llevó.
Todo era oscuro, solo agua, agua y agua. Pues parecía un océano. Ya tipo 3 de la mañana el agua ya había bajado. Salimos a ver y pudimos constatar que ya no había nada.
Noah and her brother Alfredo show me where their home once stood.
La puerta estaba para allá. Después esto comenzó a crecer el agua, comenzó a crecer el río, iba metiendo más el agua para adentro.
Me soltó y me fui. No, de ahí no recuerdo si pasé arriba de la pasarela o abajo, solo fui a despertar ya abajo por la bambucera. Y luego vi ramas así, me agarré de ellas.
Me dice un amigo que mi papá estaba arriba del puente y allí lo velamos. En todo esto nosotros seguimos buscando a mi mamá, pero al fin que lo dimos por vencido, que no la hallamos, ya dejamos de buscarla.
So you didn't know who had survived, if anybody had survived with you?
Sí, eso pensaba, que todos estaban vivos. No me imaginaba que mi papá y mi mamá habrían muerto.
El Salvador doesn't have the resources to provide effective support for the millions of people at risk from natural disasters. To make communities more prepared, an organisation named Plan International, with support from international donors, has begun setting up civil protection committees. These committees identify safe areas and run emergency drills so that residents know what to do in the event of a disaster. What's most innovative is that young people are heavily involved and are trained in disaster response, first aid and evacuation procedures. In her new community, Noah is part of the committee, now preparing for an earthquake drill. The whole point of this drill is that it's as realistic as possible, so everybody's going to be doing exactly what they'll be doing when real disaster hits.
Mucha atención. En nuestra comunidad.
Iris. Buenas, pueden salir.
So the first aid team are entering the community and they're looking for victims injured by debris falling from the earthquake. They found a victim. This gentleman's got extensive injuries, got open fractures, head injury. So the ambulance have arrived. The point of the first aid team is to initially stabilise the patient after finding them, but very quickly emergency services arrive on site. And they work with the Civil Protection Committee to get the victims to safety. It's actually really frightening. It does feel really realistic.
Le pedimos salir de manera ordenada hasta la cancha. Si los quiere apoyar, pues todos a la cancha, donde ya la concentración de víctimas.
They're getting the splints ready for the broken bone so that when the patient is moved or transported, we minimise additional injury that can occur. Very realistic. It did feel like the real thing. The injuries were really convincing. Your heart was pounding. You really had a sense of terror.
Bueno, en estos momentos ya el simulacro ha llegado a su fin. Esperamos que a toda la población.
Noah, how does it feel to be part of these evacuation drills?
Me siento bien, muy bien, excelente.
Do you feel more prepared having practiced these drills?
Sí, porque como practicamos, vamos a sentir más preparados para hacer otras cosas más y más preparados, todos juntos.
In October 2011, torrential rain devastated the country, killing 34 people and leaving over 55,000 in temporary housing. El Peñón is a community based in a hugely vulnerable mountainous area, which has been running emergency drills for years. With raging water and landslides all around, Gustavo and Carla were part of the committee that successfully evacuated all members of the community to a pre-arranged meeting point, safe from landslides.
Bueno, esto parecía película de acción. Si uno se paraba, un día uno mismo. Entonces, por eso fue que todo, o sea, prácticamente la comunidad fue evacuada. Porque no se podía estar en ningún lugar porque no estaba seguro. Donde quiera estaban haciendo agua.
What difference did it make having this training and being prepared for when this disaster came?
Nos ayudaron precisamente para ese caso, ya no íbamos que, ¿qué vamos a hacer?
Gracias a Dios no hubo ningún muerto ni daños a personas así.
And without this training and being prepared, do you think people would have died?
Sí, bastante.
Se hubiera dado ese caso.
Si no hubiéramos estado preparados, sí, no hubiéramos hallado qué hacer, cada quien hubiera visto por lo suyo y no nos hubiéramos interesado en la comunidad.
So in there somewhere could be an organism that's producing the next antibiotic. Maybe this Petri dish has it.
Let's hope so.